good afternoon. I know this is after lunch, at least lunch for some of us and not for others, right? And a busy day so far. So let's get some energy and really a nuclear energy into this conversation about the future of nuclear in all of Africa. And as we already heard, we're going to talk about a number of different topics. I want to touch on what is the current state of nuclear, what's the some of the challenges with financing, capacity building, what's currently happening on the ground, and what's the vision for the future. I'm not going to reintroduce the panel. You already know them, and their names are on the screen as well. So Sama, I think I'm going to start with you. Just kind of give us an overview of of Africa. What's happening on nuclear in Africa?
Well, thank you, Atul, and it's a pleasure to join all of you. And frankly, after this keynote speech that we have from Minister Niane, I think that we have a very good framework for where we are. So yes, Africa is very excited and interested in nuclear energy. And then, of course, we have some countries with existing nuclear power programs, such as, for example, South Africa, where we currently have two units that are operating, have been operating for 40 years, and they are now moving into a lifetime extension. But of course, South Africa, as many of you know, they also have plans to expand this fleet for up to 10 gigawatts of nuclear capacity, large and small. And of course, very importantly, South Africa wants to gain control of the entire value chain of nuclear, the entire fuel cycle. So then going to the other corner of Africa, we have in Egypt existing nuclear power plants that are being built as we speak. So the El Dabaa nuclear unit, once that is constructed, it will actually power about 10% of the electricity in Egypt and also will provide fresh water. So this is a very, very interesting thing. And in addition to that, there is a number of countries in Africa with serious uh, plans to move forward with nuclear energy at different levels. We just heard about Senegal a little bit, but then we have other countries such as Ghana or Rwanda, Kenya, Uganda, Morocco. I have several of them, Nigeria, Algeria. So all these countries, there are different levels of the development of nuclear energy, but they are all very serious. And I think that what is very interesting, and I'm sure we will discuss today, is that for most countries in Africa, nuclear energy is now become, or many countries in Africa has become a key component of this well-rounded energy mix. Is I mean, as we heard, it's renewables, it's oil and gas, it is nuclear, it is hydro. But also African countries are interested in being players in this global nuclear family, if you wish. They are not interested just in receiving the technology,
Yeah.
but they actually want to be part of the supply chain, part of the knowledge, taking, of course, into account the uranium resources that we have in Africa.
Yeah. Very quick question, follow up. Where do you see the next plants or few countries you want to, you mentioned some of them.
Right.
Yeah, where do you see that?
Well, I don't know, I'm not a betting woman, but I think that we will see new plants being built in South Africa probably very soon. And I think that there are countries like Ghana, Rwanda that are definitely moving forward quite quickly.
Okay. Are you going to speak in French or
French, yeah.
you will be?
I will pick this in French.
Oh, okay. So we
I
need
don't
some
have a headset.
headsets for all of us as well as for so can we wait for you to get the headsets for
Okay,
a minute?
okay.
So maybe I go to you, Mr. Komarov. You have a lot of experience as a Roger Tom operating around the world. Here in Africa, what do you see as the most critical requirements for really growing nuclear energy?
Thank you very much for inviting me, and good afternoon, distinguished panelists and guests. Definitely, as already mentioned, Africa urgently needs a stable, reliable baseload energy. According to the forecast of International Energy Agency, by 2030, Africa's electrical demand will soar by 75% from today's 680 terawatt hour to nearly 1,000 200 terawatt hour. And without dependable baseload, power progress will be very slow. As already mentioned by you and by Sama, there are only 2 nuclear power plants on the territory of Africa now, existing one here in South Africa and nuclear power plant in construction in Egypt, project Dabaa, on the base of Rosatom technology. And according to the Egypt example and our general experience of NPP construction, we see 4 main critical requirements of 4 pillars that need to be developed to ensure the safe and efficient implementation of any nuclear project. The first one is definitely the skilled workforce, because without people you cannot construct, and what is even more important, you cannot safely operate the nuclear power plant. Each big unit, I mean unit with a capacity of 1000 or 1200 megawatt, requires minimum 1000 of very well educated people. Is it possible? Yes. We have today a very big program of support of international students in Russia. We simultaneously educate now more than 2000 young engineers. And what is even more important, we established a lot of relations with national universities all over the world, helping them in a program to educate young people. For example, only in Egypt, there are more than 1,700 students educating now different nuclear programs with the support of Rosatom. Second pillar is the development of a comprehensive nuclear infrastructure for such a project. Nuclear power is not simply about constructing a plant, it's about shaping a nation's future. Nuclear power plants are multi-decade commitments. Building a nuclear program means creating the entire ecosystem. That means with the highest International Atomic Energy Agency requirements. It starts with a solid regulatory framework, careful site selection, spent fuel management, long-term policies, reliable oversight. We need to think about all these aspects. It's not just the construction of nuclear power plant, it's a lot of other elements. Third pillar is how to involve national companies to the big projects like construction of nuclear power plant, because without localization, because without the huge participation of national companies, impossible to realize such a project. Take the example of Dabaa project. Today, already around more than 200 local companies are already contributing to the project, and this number is growing day by day. In Turkey, well, we started earlier than in Egypt. We have now more than 1,000 companies who is participating in a Akku project with a total amount of orders for them for more than 11 billion American dollars. And the fourth pillar, for many people in the audience, it will be the first to be named, is definitely a source of financing.
Yeah.
Good story is that now nuclear, it's already, let me say, obvious thing. I remember several years ago when we with Sama were here on Energy Summit of African continent, it was not so easy to explain why Africa needs nuclear. Today, I think everybody understands, and the speech of Honorable Minister for Senegal demonstrates this very well. The progress among financial institutions is more slower, but as a minimum, we see that the majority of them, including World Bank, including new development bank of BRICS countries, they all have now in mandate the opportunity to finance nuclear project. But it's just a beginning. We need to continue and we need to develop it.
Yeah, so you have outlined a number of key ingredients. We are going to touch on some of these in more detail as we go along. So, Honorable Minister, you can understand me now. You can, yeah, okay. So tell us about your thinking in Burkina Faso. I read the vision from your I think your minister and your president. So nuclear technology to enhance energy capacity and security. How are you planning to do that?
Ok, merci beaucoup. Je pense que le Burkina Faso actuellement est dans une dynamique de réforme. Et dans cette dynamique de réforme qui concerne tous les secteurs donc, socio-économiques de l'État, il y a également le secteur de l'énergie. Et si on prend le sous-secteur donc, de l'électricité qui fait partie du secteur de l'énergie, la demande va donc croissante et on a deux défis majeurs, c'est-à-dire accroître donc l'accès et également pouvoir donc garantir donc l'accès, l'offre donc à cette énergie. Et pour y parvenir, si on tient compte de ce qu'on a comme source d'énergie actuellement, essentiellement liées aux sources thermiques, hydroélectriques et puis solaires, il nous faut donc des sources d'énergie vraiment durables et propres, comme on peut le dire, qui va permettre donc au tissu industriel de se développer. Et si on parle du développement du tissu industriel, c'est le développement également de l'économie, réformer, transformer l'économie. Et c'est pour cela que nous avons donc des visions à court, moyen et long terme. Et dans les visions à long terme, nous avons donc l'implémentation, l'installation donc de centrales nucléaires donc au Burkina. Et pour y parvenir, on sait que c'est des sources donc qui demandent donc des investissements donc colossaux dès le départ, qui demandent donc des compétences, des technologies. Et c'est dans ce sens donc que nous sommes allés donc en partenariat avec Rosatom, qui est un des leaders donc mondiaux au niveau donc de l'énergie nucléaire. Et pour cela, on a signé donc plusieurs MOU. Et parmi donc les différents MOU qu'on a signés, il y a donc là le volet formation, puisque vous ne pouvez pas parler de centrale nucléaire sans les compétences. Donc, un des MOU qu'on a signé est relatif donc à la formation des compétences. Et il y a déjà donc des étudiants burkinabés en Russie pour se former et venir donc assurer, accompagner donc la mise en place de cette technologie. Il y a également le volet sensibilisation, communication. Parce que quand on parle de centrales nucléaires aujourd'hui, on parle de nucléaire. Dans nos contrées, généralement, les gens voient uniquement le volet militaire, alors qu'il y a l'usage civil, il y a les différentes applications. Et le dernier, c'est également donc les infrastructures. Donc, c'est une vision qui rentre donc dans notre programme qu'on appelle donc production vision 2040 pour que les populations puissent avoir un accès intégral à l'énergie. Sans énergie, on ne peut pas parler donc de développement. Merci.
So you really put together a very comprehensive plan, and nuclear is part of the overall electrification plan in the country, isn't it? Yeah. So let me bring my other panelists. So Navid, going to you. I on Salt Plus Energy. It's this very nice tagline: rethinking nuclear. So how are you rethinking nuclear?
That's focusing on a new reactor design within the SMR category, molten salt reactor, because as we also heard that there's a lot of different opportunities within nuclear energy. And what Solfos is focusing on is a molten salt reactor designed as a floating nuclear power plant. So not a land-based solution, a floating system, but designed for being in industrial parks near harbor. It's not a new idea, but it is something that we've already seen and that Rosatom is already operating based on a different reactor design. But Solfos's design is based on a molten salt reactor. And that's a company based in Denmark, of all places. And for those of you that may know a bit about the nuclear industry, then Denmark is where the anti-nuclear power movement started. So it's a bit atypical to start a nuclear company there. But nevertheless, headquartered there and then working in close collaboration with Samsung Heavy Industries and KHNP on designing the turnkey solution.
Yeah. And where are you in terms of scale up and deployment of the technology?
So we're still in the early days. Things take time when you're developing a new technology, and especially when it comes to nuclear. We started 10 years ago, so we're still in the relatively early stages and in the regulatory engagement. So there's still some years to go before our solution is operational.
Yeah, and I think you had mentioned maybe South Korea will be one of the first places.
Yeah, so South Korea is where the regulatory engagement is started. But the application areas is focused for the global south. So that's what we're optimizing towards. It's not a solution based for Denmark, but the global south and also the continent is some of the focus areas.
That's why you're here in South Africa. Mr. Ntuli, you of this panelists have some real on the hand experience, and now you are trying to extend the license. Just tell our audience a little bit about how it has gone and what is it taking to extend the license. Not as straightforward as people may think, isn't
Yeah.
it?
All right. All right. No, thank you, and thanks for having us as Eskom here. So, as you rightly say, we have been operating two nuclear reactors at Koeberg for over almost 40 years on Unit 1, and we're coming up to 40 years on Unit 2. And as South Africa, really, we've been privileged. We do have a research reactor, which is run by our sister company, which is Nexa, that has operated for over 80 years. We were celebrating the 80th anniversary not so long ago. All right? Been doing a lot of medical isotopes from that reactor. And also, we did have in the past a value chain where we produced our own fuel. So, coming back to Koeberg, um, we started this journey to extend the life of Koeberg about 10 years ago. So our license was for 40 years. Unit 1 started operating in July of 1984. So last year we came up to 40 years. So we had to extend the life of the station by another 20 years, and which is the beauty of nuclear, really. But that journey started 10 years before. So it's not something that we woke up on, on year 39 to extend. So what is the message on this? Nuclear is a long-term game. So you really need to plan and ensure that you plan well in advance. So this was an existing plant, but to really extend it, we started putting that case together 10 years ago. It entailed a number of things that we had to do. We had to replace the steam generators, big components. We had to replace our water refueling tanks. We had a monitoring program on our reactor vessels that we had to replace. And from there, we had to do a lot of safety studies, which were directed to us by our regulator and also by the help of the IAEA. And all of those were done, put the case together for the regulator to review. And fortunately enough, we did get a license last year prior to the unit shutting down that extended Unit 2 by 20 years. So that's another 20 years of cheap, low carbon energy or clean energy. Currently, we are busy with Unit 2. I've actually come back from the Northern Cape. So yesterday and on Monday, we were doing public hearings with the communities in the Northern Cape for the life extension of Unit 2. I just got back here this morning. And tomorrow until Wednesday, we'll be doing public hearings around in the Western Cape, but that is also to extend Unit 2. We believe that as Eskom, we've put a solid case for the regulator to look at that and grant us approval for Unit 2. The license for Unit 2 expires on 9th of November, and we hope that the regulator will rule positively, but is a regulator, so we need to afford them space. But we are hoping that they will rule positively in our favor to extend Unit 2 for another 20 years.
Yeah, very brief response. The extension is the plant is safe to run for, right? There is no issues around safety and reliability and any of those.
No, there's no.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
designed to last much longer than 40 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you just keep on doing your upgrades and things like that. But currently, there's no any safety issues, can run for 20 years. And other similar power plants, they're actually going for 80 years now, so it's a norm in the industry. And if we also run Koeberg well in the next 20 years, we'll possibly look at extending further because the asset that is there that can be harnessed.
Very well. Good luck. Good luck with that extension.
Thank
Some, financing has already come up, as you know, and it's been a big issue. We were together last week in New York, where it was a big issue. So, what kind of financing models you think are applicable here in Africa?
Well, I think that the first thing that we need to do is to demystify the fact that nuclear energy is unique and different. I mean, we had earlier in the last month, I mean, the first week in September, we had our finance strategic summit, as you very well know. And the consensus from the finance community that was getting together in London was exactly that nuclear projects are no different than any energy infrastructure project. So we are talking about projects that, yes, they have a large capital investment, but then we are looking at something that is going to produce energy for the next 40, 60, 80, 100 years. And this is going to be energy that is very constant in price and is 24/7, carbon free, etc. So the social value of these projects is quite different. So what we are seeing is that there is this perfect storm where institutional investors, governments, and commercial investors are coming together into these projects. And then one thing that is a little bit unique that the master of ceremonies mentioned before we started the session is that for the first time in a long time, the energy users, such as, for example, the technology companies or the last metallurgical industries or petrochemicals, chemicals, whatever, they are actually looking at nuclear energy by themselves as an opportunity to power their operations. So this is this perfect storm. So there is many financial and revenue models that are very important, and I do like to emphasize that because it's not just the
Money.
financing of the project, but it's putting in place a suitable revenue model for that. So we have the contract for differences, we have the RAV model, we have the power purchase agreements. We have the Mancala model that was put together in Finland. So there is a myriad of models that the finance community understands very well, and they are very good to distribute the financial risk appropriately throughout the different players. And then one thing that we've mentioned, I think that Kirill mentioned, as you know, the World Bank just a few months ago they changed their lending policies to include nuclear power projects, and of course this is actually trickling down into many other multinational development banks, African Development Bank, the West Africa Development Bank, and many others in other regions considering nuclear projects. So I think that all these pieces of the puzzle are going to be very useful to actually start seeing not just one project at a time, but seeing programs
Pipeline.
developing exactly in different
Yeah.
countries.
So overall, the landscape is looking much more
Better,
optimistic.
much more better. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Kagambega, coming to you, sir. Uh, how about how are you thinking? Just what Sama said about, for example, World Bank allowing for more nuclear financing. Have you approached some of the MDBs and to ask for financing? How do you see financing for the opportunity you see within Burkina Faso?
Ok, merci. Il faut dire que nous sommes donc au premier stade. Donc, pour ce qui est des financements, pour le moment, on n'a pas encore approché les différentes institutions, puisque c'est vraiment le point de départ. Et nous avons essayé donc d'approcher l'Agence internationale de l'énergie atomique. Et lors donc du 68e congrès, nous avons donc réaffirmé notre engagement. Et avec Rosatom, avec le protocole d'accord de coopération qu'on vient de signer en juin, on va essayer de voir ensemble quel sera donc le modèle de financement qui sera adapté donc à notre projet. Puisque jusque-là, même la technologie, on ne l'a pas encore choisie. Et ça sera donc en fonction de cette technologie, en fonction de ce que nous allons mettre comme infrastructure, qu'on pourra voir donc et le budget qui sera donc alloué à ce projet et également quelles peuvent être les sources de financement. Bien sûr, on va ratisser large, pourquoi pas donc voir avec donc le privé, engager donc le privé pour des partenariats publics-privés, pourquoi pas avec Rosatom pour un modèle Build, Operate and Transfer, un BOT, pourquoi pas. Donc ça veut dire que c'est en phase de réflexion et en temps opportun, puisque l'étude de préfaisabilité n'est même pas encore faite. Donc, quand tous ces éléments donc seront donc rassemblés, quand on aura tous ces éléments sur la table, on pourra donc voir ce qu'il faut pour ce projet très ambitieux pour notre pays et qu'est-ce qu'il faut comme modèle donc de financement.
Yeah.
Merci.
So I should say Burkina Faso is open for business. You are looking for investors to come in and invest in Burkina Faso.
Nous sommes ouverts et nous sommes à la recherche donc d'investisseurs. C'est pas seulement dans le projet énergétique, projet nucléaire. Il y a pas mal de projets, mais aujourd'hui, on parle donc du
Broader energy.
ouais,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Komarov, we just uh, heard about different ideas here, and I want to pivot a little bit to SMRs as a technology. And you have a lot of experience in it. How do you see feasibility of SMRs here in Africa?
Thank you for your question. SMR is really a very hot topic, and a lot of people dream that SMR can be a very interesting solution for energy demand problems. Let me be very honest, because Rosatom is only one company in the world who is now operating the real technology. We have our floating nuclear power plant in operation already more than 5 years. And I can tell you that SMR is a very specific solution. First of all, the energy of SMR never will be cheaper than the energy of big nuclear power plants, because you need to implement a lot of safety measures, but the size of electricity, it's really small, and it all reflected immediately in the final price of electricity. But it's a very good solution for isolated areas, for the areas which are not connected with the centralized grid. And please take into account that a lot of energy systems in Africa are rather small.
Yeah.
They just cannot install the big nuclear power plant with capacity of 1,000 or 2,000 megawatt. It's impossible for the general size of the whole country system. That's why SMR can be a very wise solution, which can give the opportunity to go step by step to increase the quantity of electricity year by year, starting from 50 megawatts, the next 50 megawatt, and so on. And definitely it's much more easy to find money for such a solution, because you need definitely less money if you are talking about the general amount. Floating NPP, it's one of the very interesting solution, because it fits for a lot of seashore territories, for a lot of isolated territories. And uniqueness of this product is that the platform itself produce electricity, but the country who receives this electricity has nothing common with all these things like spent fuel management or radioactive waste management, because all fuel remains on this floating platform. Floating platform works during 6 or 8 or even 10 years, then goes back to Russia, reload the spent fuel, load the fresh fuel, and all problems about this fuel will be decided on the territory of Russia. Means the country can have the access to the green and sustainable electricity, and no common problem with all these additional nuclear aspects, which very often frighten the people and have the special public effect. And we see now a lot of interested countries on African continent interested in SMR solution, including floating NPPs. And I believe that before 2030, it will be opportunity to start operation of the first floating NPP on the African continent. We will see what country will be the first. It's some sort of international competition, but the interest is very strong, and I believe it's possible.
Yeah. So very good segue to you, Navid. Competition, opportunity for you. How quickly can you get into an operating plant? You talked about South Korea, but what about somewhere in Africa?
No, there's still some different pathways and some hurdles that needs to be overcome when it's a novel design, and some things that needs to be proven. So of course, an emerging technology is of course further out into the future than a conventional.
Yeah.
But I think there is often this thing about pitting SMRs versus conventional reactors, and I think that's a bit off in general, because we've heard it again and again about the energy poverty that we have in the world today, and we don't have a green transition, we have a green addition. And that goes both for conventional nuclear and for SMRs. We need all of that. And I think what SMRs can bring is help with diversification and more options for nuclear energy and applications of that. But it's not one versus the other. And that goes for the same thing about other energy sources. We need all of the above type approach. But what I think that ASMR has also helped do is back to Sama's point about demystifying nuclear energy. It shows a different interest to it, which helps demystify more of nuclear aspects. Because I hear it again and again, both in Salt First, but also work with the world's biggest philanthropic foundation working on nuclear adoption for newcomer countries. And it's again the same topic that comes up as knee-jerk reactions about safety, about non-proliferation, about waste handling, as if those are problems. But those are problems that have been solved. And it's not to be cavalier about those topics, it's important topics. But the SMR aspects help bring a different interest for it that can then help guide more of that education and more of that demystifying of nuclear energy at large.
Yeah, and your technology in particular is just very safe. Can you say a little bit about safety aspects of it?
It's very safe. It's a fundamentally different reactor design, so safety will be handled in a different way. But nuclear energy is safe today, and that's what I find interesting about talking about nuclear energy is that oftentimes I get the question about safety, whereas if I talk about solar or wind, then the first thing, the knee-jerk reaction is not safety, even though nuclear energy is just as safe as those other technologies.
Yeah. So, Mr. Natuli, when we were talking about this whole issue, you reflected that still there are, after all these years of operation in South Africa, still some concerns about safety, right? I mean, what's the concern here? Is there a concern from the public? I mean, not
Yeah.
from the experts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one of the biggest challenge as a nuclear industry that we face. That we really need to go out and educate the public around how safe nuclear is and the advantages of nuclear. So, if as nuclear professionals we don't fill that space and we leave a vacuum, everyone else will fill that space. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what you pick up from these communities that they know about nuclear, but what they know about nuclear is not correct. You know, so there's a lot of work that we are trying to do as ESCOM. I have one of my advisors here in trying to educate the public and the communities really about nuclear and how safe it is. And it is work that I think across the whole industry that we need to do. Um, Example that I can give you, when I joined Koeberg Nuclear Power Station, one of the advice that I got from one of my teachers was that the less that is said about nuclear, the better. So that meant that don't talk about nuclear. And if nobody says anything about nuclear, so we needed to exist very quietly and
Low
things like that.
profile.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we need to break away from that mentality and own our space and really communicate the true facts about nuclear. Quebec has been there, has been operating for 40 years, and there's not been a safety incident.
Yeah.
You know.
So, and what about expansion? Do you see another new unit coming on into the future?
Definitely. So there is a lot of work. We are fortunate to have the minister that we have, our company, and our government. There's been a lot of, um, energy from our government to say that we need to build new nuclear power plants. We are waiting for the IRP, the Integrated Resource Plan, to be published. We really hope that nuclear is going to be part of that mix. As ESCOM, we are preparing for that together with the Department of Energy and Electricity to be ready when the IRP is published, to take those plans forward. There will be some of our coal-fired power plants that are closing in around the 2030, time frame, and we have to replace that base load. It is important that we replace it, and we believe that nuclear is the
Yeah.
option to replace it. Thank
One
you.
of the things people should realize is that a coal plant has a shorter lifespan than a nuclear plant, right?
Yeah,
And you have to build more of them if you still want to continue to consume
yeah.
coal. Sama, you may want to touch on the public view, but I also want you to, you're so well involved. And by the way, congratulations on your 50th symposium last month on WNA. Tell us your vision. I mean, nuclear is, as I can say, hot. So where does it go from here?
Well, I mean, I think that we just heard something that is very important, because there are some, I mean, we do need to be clear on what the true role of nuclear energy is and has been. I mean, many people don't realize that today and for the last 5 decades, nuclear energy has been the largest source of carbon-free electricity in OECD countries. And if we look at the world, second only to hydropower.
Yes.
So for some people, nuclear is this thing that we want to do in the future. They don't realize, as we just heard, that for the last 40 years, South Africa, for example, has depended on this technology. So what I think is changed is that in many countries, in all continents, we have found this newfound pragmatism,
Yeah.
where this connection between abundant, affordable, 24/7 clean energy and development, prosperity, quality of life has been made. And clearly nuclear is that very important piece of the puzzle. So I look forward to seeing existing nuclear and new nuclear going on in South Africa. I look forward to the Dabaa project to start operating and showing how we can do this. And I really look forward to other countries, whether it is Burkina Faso, Rwanda, Senegal, Ghana, Kenya, many others, to actually have the first units to start moving forward very quickly.
Just a brief answer. Do you see sort of some of the North American like hyperscalers, when they want to come into places like Africa, they may also think about sort of nuclear as one of the options?
Definitely. I mean, I think that hyperscalers in general are seeing the need for 24/7, hopefully carbon-free electricity.
Yeah.
And they look at nuclear as a very, very top of the line choice. So I think that many of them, as I mentioned before, the energy users are becoming players in this market. It's not just, they are not just waiting for a utility or somebody to put the generation for them. They are actually coming already with the plans and the ideas for the generation that they need.
Yeah. Mr. Kagambega, you have really taken a leap forward in Burkina Faso with all the things you talked about doing. Where do you see in next 5 years? What kind of things you want to see happen within the country?
Ok. Et il faut dire que bon, nous, au niveau du pays, on a plusieurs donc, projets. Et la première vision, c'est 2030. 2030, il faut qu'on essaie donc de voir avec notre mix énergétique qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour pouvoir donc répondre à la demande et accroître donc l'accès. Donc, il y a plusieurs pistes donc qui sont envisagées, telles que le gaz, pour pouvoir donc booster donc la demande énergétique. Et comme le projet nucléaire, c'est un projet qui prend énormément de temps, parce que si on prend rien que la mise en place donc de l'infrastructure nucléaire, avec ce qu'on a comme information, ce qu'on a comme donc accompagnement au niveau de l'AIA, la mise en place donc de l'infrastructure nucléaire ne pourra prendre 10 à 15 ans, comme c'est notre première donc expérience. Donc, avant ces 10 ans ou ces 15 ans, il nous faut donc résoudre le problème. Donc, dans les 5 ans à venir, c'est pouvoir donc répondre donc à la demande, aussi bien donc des foyers qu'au niveau donc du monde industriel, pour pouvoir donc booster donc l'économie. Parce que nous sommes dans une dynamique d'industrialisation, et pour cette industrialisation, il nous faut l'énergie. Et avant que le projet nucléaire ne soit mis en place, il nous faut trouver donc d'autres sources donc d'énergie. Et nous envisageons également des sources d'énergie qui sont donc propres, qui protègent donc l'environnement, donc des énergies vertes, et nous allons donc aller vers, il y a le solaire, et également donc vers le gaz.
Yeah. So you have a roadmap and you have things you can do now, but nuclear comes down the road in that roadmap, isn't it?
Oui, absolument, on a une feuille de route, et même pour l'énergie nucléaire, donc on est en train d'élaborer la feuille de route avec l'accompagnement de l'AIA et également donc de Rosatom. Et par rapport donc à cette feuille de route, actuellement, nous sommes dans la révision des textes réglementaires, parce que pour une telle infrastructure, pour un tel projet, bien sûr, c'est durable, c'est sûr et c'est sécurisé, mais il faut que les textes réglementaires donc soient adoptés. Donc la vision actuellement, notre objectif actuellement, c'est de pouvoir ratifier toutes les conventions qui peuvent donc encadrer la mise en place donc d'une telle infrastructure. Et Pour ce qui est donc de la résolution du problème énergétique au niveau donc du pays, on a également une feuille de route 2027-2030 pour pouvoir donc résorber donc ce déficit.
Yeah. Thank you. Coming back to Rosatom, what's your vision for Africa? I mean, you're already here, but what's your kind of vision for the next 5 years? Let's talk short term.
First, what is more clear, 2030, it's a time when Egyptian nuclear power plant Dabaa should be
Should be
operational.
operational. Mhm.
It's 4 units with a total capacity of approximately 5 gigawatt, which can provide the energy to 18 million people, or it will cover approximately 17% of energy needs of Egypt. And I believe it's possible because project is in process, construction is ongoing. Just a couple of days ago, during the World Atomic Week in Moscow, we celebrated the settlement of the first nuclear reactor for the unit number 1, and now Egyptian plant Dabaa became a biggest nuclear construction in the world with 4 units simultaneously constructed. And plus, I believe that being serious, a lot of African countries can start a real nuclear program. Yes, 5 years, it's a very ambitious and short-term period to commission a plant, but as a minimum, it's possible to start a real construction. Doesn't matter, should it be big plant or SMR, it's time to go, it's time to act.
So time to act. So and good luck with Egypt. Hopefully
Thank
it'll
you.
go all on time. Navid, by the way, I noticed that your company's name changed while we have been on the stage. No, I'm just kidding you. So that's the sign of a real entrepreneur, that you can represent multiple companies doing different things. So what's your vision for Africa and nuclear in Africa?
Well, it depends on which hat I'm wearing.
Yeah, but you are right now Teher Power, I can see.
No,
from
I think when
different-
it comes to SMRs for the continent, there's a lot from the industry sides that needs to be proven. There's some pragmatism that is needed, to Sama's point again, and some realism that's also needed. Oftentimes we see with SMRs gets put up on a pedestal that can solve all kinds of things. Especially for newcomer countries on the continent. And I think we need to be realistic about those and manage those expectations, so we don't end up in a situation where it ends up disappointing. I think there's a lot of good things going on, and the nuclear renaissance is happening now, both conventional and with SMRs, but there's also some realism needed so we don't end up in situations like, at least in what we've seen in Europe, about green hydrogen, which has also been put up on a pedestal and disappointing to some extent. So there's some realism and some pragmatism that is needed in order to be able to deliver SMRs to the continent.
So you think there is a stronger or a better, more thought out roadmap for nuclear?
Well, yes, because there's a lot of different streams and a lot of different chords that needs to get corrected. And I think back to the thing about the World Bank and the lifting of the ban, it is instrumental for that. And that's just one chord that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Naturally, we didn't get a chance to talk about kind of capacity building. You're doing a number of things. Mr. Komarov mentioned as one of the 4 things, the need for our people. Can maybe briefly you can talk about what you're doing for the sort of next generation of nuclear engineers? How are you building capacity within South Africa and beyond South Africa?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges that we had faced as ESCOM is that we are very far from everyone else, so we really had to rely on our own people in South Africa. So pipeline has been very important for us, working with the universities around us and technical colleges around us to really get young people and ensure that we develop them. So we have an extensive training center at Koeberg, where we train our own operators and also our artisans and things like that. But we still rely on universities or institutions of learning, more especially around the STEM subjects, the science, engineering, technology, and mathematics subjects, so that we get that as a feedstock. But it is a key thing that you continuously need to work with your stakeholders, more especially in the educational sector.
Do you see approval for the next unit in the next 3-4 years, or even shorter than that?
So we're hoping shorter than that. As soon as the IRP is announced, we hope that there's good news. and we can drive that. As we said, we're ready. One of the site where Koeberg is has received a environmental authorization, so we are now applying for the nuclear installation license according to our regulation. And if we get that, then we can move on with that nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
And talking about SMRs that is a possible solution that we are looking for, more especially to replace our retiring coal power plants.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sama, I'll give you the last word. Since you look at the world, what would be your advice to countries in Africa to go faster and stronger?
Well, I do want to recommend countries in Africa to look at the example of countries that have been successful to move forward very quickly. United Arab Emirates, Bangladesh. So we have seen them going from 0 to 100 in 10, 15 years. So again, nuclear is nothing different than other large infrastructure projects. So it's a matter of getting a serious vision and leadership and all your ducks in a row.
Yeah, and creating a roadmap like what is happening.
Clearly, you have to have a roadmap, you have to have the regulatory infrastructure, the workforce for sure, you have to have the right partners, but there is nothing inherently different or more difficult about nuclear than any other large energy infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
will end on that note of optimism. Thank you for joining me in this excellent panel. We'll come back next year and talk more as to what's been happening. All right. Thank you.